Hello, everyone. I'm coming to you all with another maturing moment, which is entitled It's Only by Grace. So I'm reminded of a conversation I just recently had with my daughter, and she told me one of her teachers just called her blunt. And she was like, "Well, Mom, what is that?" So I had to explain to her that it can be a good thing, but it also can be a bad thing. And that we all, as people, have different characteristics about ourselves. And it is our job to channel that and to not let that characteristic get the best of us, and for us to think that it's okay for us to just use it like we want to use it, never mind who it may offend and how they may receive what we're saying. So one of the things my co-pastor would say, we have to think about what we're thinking about, as well as Joyce Myers is like, you got to think before you speak. And I'm working with my daughter on just simply thinking about what she said before she said, because it can come across, I wouldn't say blunt. I would say it can come across where it can be abrupt. It can come across as, in a sense, it can come across as disrespect based on who's receiving it and how they are receiving it. So it can be a good thing that she has this characteristics of boldness. That's the characteristic I would say she has, that she may be, and being outspoken, that God may use this characteristics to be an advocate for someone, or to start an initiative, or to be a part of an organization. That is the good part, because it's going to work together for God's good and God's purpose. But the bad part is when you're not channeling or filtering those things, because you're just assuming everything that comes to mind, I'm just going to just blurt it out and say it, or everything that I feel, I'm just going to go out and say it. But no, we have to understand it's only by grace that we are where we are, and that we are who we are. So I'm actually, when I was thinking about it, the scripture that came to mind was First Corinthians 15, and it's verse 58, and it was about how we need to understand we have to be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the works of the Lord. And this coincides with it's only by grace. When we realize it's only by grace, that we don't have this characteristic just to have this characteristic. That's just like in one scripture, it talks about we are all members of one body. I can be the ear of the body. My daughter can be the hand of the body. We can't say that we don't need each other. And you have to understand that because of grace, grace will help you to see where you went wrong, but also grace will help you to see the value of someone else, so that you all can work together as that one body. You have to know that you all have distinct personalities, distinct characteristics, and you may not necessarily understand why you have what you have, but you have to be very sensitive and operate in love with others by how you say things and thinking before you speak. So let's go over this scripture in verse, it's actually in chapter, it's First Corinthians chapter 15. And it's Paul is talking about how he was appointed as a apostle, right? And if you know anything about Paul, you know he was a persecutor of the Christians, right? And even in the midst of Jesus knowing this, even God knowing this, he still used him, right? He still used him, even though he knew he had his personality, he had this mindset that he was doing Jesus them a favor by doing this to Christians. But Jesus turned him around, and then he was appointed an apostle. And in this chapter, it tells us how Paul knew it was only by God's grace that he is who he is today. And when we realize that, We will be able to operate in love and sensitivity and be bold when we need to, but we will do it in love. So in verse 9, it says, "For I am the least worthy of the apostles and not fit to be called an apostle, because I at one time fiercely oppressed and violently persecuted the church of God. Mm. But by the remarkable grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace towards me was not without effect. In fact, I work harder than all the apostles, though it was not I, but the grace of God, his unmerited favor and blessing, which was with me." And when we realize that in spite of our shortcomings, in spite of how we may feel, in spite of us getting it wrong or what people may say, it's only by grace that we're in the position that we're in. We will be able to make a change. We will be able to operate in love, and we will be able to channel what needs to be channeled so that we can walk in God's purpose and plan for our life. So I'm just encouraging you to think about your characteristics, your personality that you know without a shadow of a doubt that you have that somebody else may not have. And sometimes you may have a clash with a particular person because you may be a certain way or they may be a certain way. But when you realize that it's all working together because you're a part of a team, it's only by God's grace that you're in that position or they're in that position so that you can accomplish greater works in, then you will be able to do what God called you to do. Until next time, this is Mary with Purpose.